Good morning, Mossville. Good to be with you this morning. Thank you for joining me. Also, hope you're having a good Memorial Day weekend. The scripture today is from Matthew, the 14th chapter. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side. It's the other side of Lake Galilee, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," said Peter, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." May God have his blessing on the hearing reading of his holy words. Amen. Thank you for joining me this morning through technology. I am speaking really to an empty sanctuary and an empty church, so it might be a good time for me to make a public confession. I confess a temptation that I have struggled with for 50 years almost. A temptation that really has pulled me down at times. Like an alcoholic, I keep wanting to go back to it, have a desire to, and sometimes catch myself, and then I pull back again. It's not alcohol. It's not drugs, it's not sex, it's not gambling. It's not any of those juicy kind of things. I have an addiction and a problem with becoming too political. Now that may sound funny because a lot of people in our denomination particularly pride themselves on being political. But for me, it's not what God called me to do. God called me to preach the gospel. But once in a while, things happen that pulls me back into that old temptation. And once in a while, I fall. Such an occasion was about a week ago. My wife came home after reading something in the newspaper and also having heard on the radio that there was some action happening in Springfield that really upset her. When she told me about it, I really became upset. I checked out the accuracy of it from my former state representative to see if it was true. I posted something on Facebook, not the church's Facebook, but my personal Facebook. And then I thought, I've done my part. It's not political. It's not Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal. That was not the issue. It was an issue that upset me. An issue that got me back into that realm. Then I got a phone call from my son, Jeremiah. He is slowly but surely becoming the father in the family, and I'm becoming more the wayward child. I always said that I wanted to live long enough to be an embarrassment to my children, and I think I'm doing that. At any rate, Jeremiah gave me a call and tried to straighten me out. He said, Dad, of all the people in the world that I ever met, you're one of the maybe 2 top people that I respect. That made me feel obviously very good. And then he said, one reason was you always concentrated on the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ, and you never got involved in politics. But I read your post on Facebook, and Dad, that's not where you want to be. Now, he agreed with me on the issue. He was not chastising me and saying, oh, how wrong I was. But what he was doing was reminding me that I had fallen back into a temptation that I thought I had licked, but never really have. And that is to become political. Not Democrat, Republican, not conservative or liberal, but political. Looking to politics, looking to government, and trying to influence them. Well, I repented of that. You see, what happened was I needed to refocus. My focus for a moment, for a time, was off the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it was on something else. We have many things that we could focus on in life, many distractions. I'll get to some of those later. But we need to focus as Christians on Jesus Christ. We need to turn our eyes upon Jesus and keep them fixed there. Someone said, when you fix your thoughts on God, God will fix your thoughts. That's what I want to emphasize today. That's what I want to talk about today, is keeping the focus on Jesus. When it's so easy to focus on a million other things that can either harm us or at least distract us from focusing on Jesus. Arnold Palmer was leading in the Masters tournament in 1961. He was up by a stroke, hit a good tee shot. Looked like all he had to do was finish this 18th hole and he'd have the Masters. While he was walking down, he saw a friend, an old friend in the gallery he hadn't seen for a while. He went over to the friend, and the friend shook his hand and congratulated him. A little prematurely, but congratulated him. As soon as he did that, Arnold realized that he had lost his focus. He had lost his edge. He was no longer concentrating 100% on the game. And so the next shot he took landed into a sand trap. The next shot he took after that overshot the green. And then when he got on the green, he missed his first putt and lost the Masters. And he said it was an expensive lesson to learn, but he learned it and would never let it happen again. That's the kind of determination that we should have, to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus and never look anyplace else, how tempting those places might be. The story I read a few minutes ago to you is very familiar to us. Jesus had just finished preaching to hundreds, if not thousands of people, and then also going off by himself after that for a time of solitude and refreshment. And while he was there, he must have been able to see the disciples that he sent ahead, struggling against the wind and the current. as they were trying to cross the lake. Next thing we know is that Jesus is out there walking on water. The disciples are frightened. They think they're seeing a ghost. Peter doesn't know what he's seeing, but he says, "If you are Jesus, let me come to you." And so Peter got out of the boat and started walking towards Jesus. Now, he had his eyes on Jesus initially. How do we know that? Well, number one was he wasn't sure it was him or not, so he was focused. Secondly, it says he walked towards Jesus. You don't walk towards something if you aren't looking at it, at least usually. But Peter lost his focus. He no longer was looking at Jesus, but looking at the storm. And he began to sink. Now, of course, the end of the story is that Jesus saved him and made a pronouncement. And that's important. I don't want to slight that, except that's not my point today. My point today is that Peter is an example of somebody who could do impossible things as long as he focused on Jesus, as long as his eyes were on Jesus and not the storm. Now, looking at Hebrews, the 12th chapter, and really we need to go back to the 11th chapter. 11th chapter contains a hall of fame of ancestors in the faith that we can learn about their faith and their trust in God. 12th chapter begins with the word therefore. So this is why chapter 11 is therefore, witnesses. Therefore, it says in chapter 12, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely to us, looking to Jesus as the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Who are we to look to? We are to look to Jesus. Are you worried and afraid? Is this time just getting to you? It's been so long. The question is, are your eyes fixed on Jesus? Are your eyes fixed on Jesus? Are you concentrating the strength of Jesus, not the strength of the storm? Are you concentrating on his love, his character, his promises? Are your eyes fixed on Jesus? Are you comparing yourself with others? I know at times that's a difficult thing for me. I see and envy all these other podcasts and worship services, and here I stand with my little iPhone and trying to say something that makes it worthwhile to you. See all these eloquent preachers and all of these scenes that they put together. So, yeah. But then I think, there I go again. I've taken my eyes off Jesus. I've taken my eyes off the goal. I've made other things in my thoughts and in my emotions the main thing, instead of keeping the main thing, and keeping my eyes on Jesus. Are you losing hope? Are you running out of strength? Then turn your eyes upon Jesus. A young woman was taken captive and put in a concentration camp during World War II. She witnessed firsthand the torture, the agony, the execution of her friends and family. She was hopeless in the situation. She had seen evil face to face. She was in a place she did not choose, certainly, and had a future beyond her control. However, she made it through. Not only made it through, but made it through stronger and better than she entered the situation. Her name was Corrie ten Boom. And she summarized her secrets for survival and even her secret for spiritual growth in such a hostile environment, to say the least. And she wrote this: if you look at the world, you'll be distressed. If you look within, you'll be depressed. But if you look at Christ, you'll be at rest. I don't know about you, but I think during this time of stay in place, this time of waiting until we can get back to doing the things we want to do or need to do, in this time, it seems like the days are just shifting by, never to be reclaimed again. Like they're fleeting away. But then go to a world that is dying, the song says, his perfect salvation to tell. You see, nothing can interfere with our purpose in life when we focus on Jesus. Nothing. Not a thing. You see, we can be a witness. We can be the one who doesn't grumble. We can be the one who gives hope. We the one who has confidence in every step that we take because we know that our eyes are focused on Jesus. His full and wonderful face. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. How do we keep focused on Jesus? We focus on his word. We focus on his promises to always be with us, to see us through everything, then underlying the word through everything, into his glorious destiny for us. He will never waste our time of pain, or our time of hurt, and our time of separation, or whatever time that we're going through that is difficult. He'll never waste that, but always find a way to use that for good, for those who follow his purpose. He will pick us up when we fall. We bounce back, we come back. Those are his promises, and that's how we keep focused on Jesus. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.